Hello, Rob O'Neill here, and I'd like to talk to you for a moment about achieving financial success at a young age, so in your teens, late teens, or your 20s, and how that can be possible for almost anyone. Now, obviously, if you're, a complete brain dead idiot, then it's going to be challenging for you to be successful. I think that's not a mystery to anyone. However, if you're a remotely competent, sane, capable individual, as most normal people are, so if you're just any kind of regular person, as am I just had a very regular upbringing, regular childhood, didn't grow up rich or inherit anything or anything like that. Now, if you're in that position, you're just a normal person and you're looking to achieve wealth and success and financial freedom, then there's really two different ways you can approach this. So the first way, which is what most people do, is very haphazard. And due to that haphazardness, very few of them ever find success. And the reason for that is because the methodology that they're applying is simply not going to lead, it's not capable of leading to the results that they want to achieve. So what you really need to do is start looking at your life and your financial life in terms of cause and effect, because what it ultimately comes down to is if you put the right inputs into a system, then it will deliver the outcomes, the results, the outputs that you desire, right? So really what you want to do when you're thinking about going into business and making money is to create a system that allows you to input certain variables and then get the desired outputs or products that you desire, right? And now that's very sort of vague and wishy-washy unless you understand what I'm talking about, so I'm going to clarify and explain that now. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you own a restaurant, right? If you own a restaurant, that restaurant is a system that turns footfall or people coming into that restaurant into profit, right? When they come in, they buy food. So when you have a restaurant established, all you have to do then is get footfall, is get traffic, is get people to come to the restaurant to buy food and drinks and meals, okay, and then hopefully return numerous times, right? And the more you can get people to do that, the more profit you make, right? That's now a system where if you create the right input, which is footfall or traffic or people coming into the restaurant and having dinner, then you will make money, okay? And at that point, you simply need to increase the amount of people coming in the door and the capacity that you can serve, and you will make more money, right? Now you have a system that allows you, by controlling the input, which is the amount of customers coming in, you can control the output, which is how much money you make. And that is the real secret to business, okay? It's in having a system that can turn traffic or attention or something into profit, okay? So when you're looking at online businesses, especially what I do, which is selling information products, this is the perfect business model to apply that principle, because when you create, for example, a marketing system, right, where you create a sales funnel where you have automation, it brings leads in, delivers marketing and sales pitches, and then obviously sells products. When you create a system that can do that consistently, then all you have to really focus on is the right inputs, which in this case would be, say, driving traffic to your website. Okay, so when you've built a system where you have things like email marketing to sell your products, where you have things like sales videos, which are evergreen, which can sell your product for you in an automated way. Okay, when you have things like automated product delivery, in the sense that when somebody buys your product, they click a button and then they can download that product instantly. It's automated, okay? That basically takes your time and your involvement out of that whole system. Now you have a system that can turn attention into profit or traffic into profit, okay? At which point all you have to do is look at the cause and effect principle going on, focus on the input, which is getting traffic, and the system will then turn that into profit for you. And at that point, you can control your financial destiny and become very, very successful extremely quickly, even at a very young age, because it's no longer a a matter of trial and error or guesswork. It's simply a matter of cause and effect. And if you put the right inputs in, you'll get the results and the success that you want. Now, when you're thinking about doing that, the key thing to remember is you have to have a business model and you have to build a system that's capable of doing it. Okay, and that is where getting the right help comes in, getting expert help, getting mentoring, training, even buying online programs, etc., like I did, in order to learn the tools and the understanding and the information, etc., in order to build that system, right? But once you have the knowledge to build that system, then all you need to do is go and apply it, and then you can control the inputs and thus control the outputs and your own success. So that's what I would say to you is, if you're a young person in your teens or your 20s and you're somebody who's, aspires to success, aspires to financial freedom, then what you should be thinking about is, how can I attain the right information, the right knowledge to build a system that will allow me to turn attention or traffic into a profit, okay? And this is basically how every really successful business on the planet works, okay? And when you can do that, at that point, you're basically free already, because you can then use advertising to drive traffic into your business, right? That's the entire point of advertising. Many people don't fully understand why it's everywhere, but this is why. The elite understand this. The successful and wealthy understand this. They have systems, businesses, which can turn attention to profit. So therefore, all they have to do is go and put up a billboard or put an ad on Facebook or on YouTube, and they have that attention, and now they can make money very consistently, and not only make money consistently, but also control how much they make by how much exposure their advertising gets. Now, the second thing you'll want to consider if you want to achieve financial freedom and success at a young age is the business model that you're going to use. So I gave you two examples there of business models that allow you to basically turn traffic into profit. Okay, one was a restaurant, the other one was an online business selling some kind of a digital product like what I do. Now, there's a very important distinction between these two business models that is not immediately apparent to most beginners, and that is, one is a cash flow business and one is an equity business. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. If you're going to start a business, especially as a young person, and especially if you're someone, just a normal person like me, who isn't starting with lots of money or wealthy family or investment or anything like that, right? Then what you want to be doing is starting a cash flow business, not an equity business. And the reason why is, if you look at something like a restaurant, if you want to establish a restaurant, so a friend of mine owns a pretty high-end Chinese restaurant, okay? Now, he makes a lot of money from that, but the upfront cost was extremely high. So it cost him almost £1 million to set up this restaurant, in terms of getting the property that the restaurant is in, acquiring all the equipment, hiring staff, getting people trained, setting up all the systems, going through health checks and all kinds of stuff like this, getting various I don't really know the restaurant business at all, but getting various sort of checks and stuff like that, for compliance in terms of health and safety and food regulations and so on, meeting various standards, and equipping the restaurant with all the things it needs, like fine cutlery and glasses and tableware and all this sort of stuff, decorations, etc., etc., etc. The list goes on and on. Okay, now it took him almost a year between deciding and fully committing to starting the restaurant, okay, so making the move, getting the property, and starting work on building the restaurant, to actually opening the doors, because of all the work that is involved in that. Okay, so in terms of finding the right chefs, all this kind of stuff, setting up the venue, like I said, passing all the compliance checks and all that sort of stuff, right? So the point is, it cost him an exorbitant amount of money. Now, that's a slightly extreme example. Most people starting a restaurant aren't going to be doing something quite like that. They're maybe going to be starting a small restaurant where they might invest a few £100,000 or a few $100,000, something like that. However, it really highlights the problem in that business model, which is, it's an equity business. You need capital, you need equity to start the business. Okay, he could never have started that business from scratch if he was broke, if he was poor, if he didn't have any money. Okay, he needed that money, needed that capital, and the time. Okay, he had to also have enough money to spend a year working on it before he made any return, right? And then it took him, a couple of years after that to actually begin making a profit, because obviously he had to recoup his investment, right? So you're looking at, 2 or 3 years where he's not actually making any money and he's in the red because he chose to go with an equity business, which requires significant upfront investment. So equity businesses are things like restaurants, hotels, bars, real estate, things like that, okay? Now, on the flip side, the other example I gave you is what I do, which is selling digital products online. And this is an example of a cash flow business, because you don't really need anything to start it. You can start an online business selling some kind of a digital product like an ebook or a course or an audio program for under $1,000. Okay, it's very, very cheap. You can do it for a couple $100 if you really do it sort of frugally, but under $1,000 is extremely, anyone can do it with that little money. Whereas you can't start a restaurant for under $1,000. It's simply impossible. So if you're a young person and you're thinking of going into business or entrepreneurship and you want to be successful, you want to achieve financial freedom, you must look at cash flow business models. You don't want to be going into an equity business because you're not in a position where you can do that. You don't have the business experience. You don't want to take on that much risk. Okay, you don't want to be, borrowing money or taking investment, going into debt, which then you might be liable for if that business didn't succeed. All this kind of stuff. It's much more risky, and you just don't need that. You already have enough stress and hard work building a business as it is. So there's no reason complicating it. Okay, if you think ultimately that your end goal would be, oh, I'd love to have a hotel chain or something like that, that's fine. But initially, especially if you want to be successful when you're young, what I absolutely highly recommend that you do, I mean, I'd really say this is mandatory, to be perfectly honest, if you're a remotely smart person, you should do it this way, is to start a cash flow business first. Something that you can just begin doing with little to no upfront investment that can then produce cash flow and make you money. Okay, so for example, what I do, damn flies, selling digital products online has virtually no cost, right, to start initially. That's why I chose it when I was broke and living in a one-bedroom apartment and all that sort of stuff. I was, there's whole stories about that on my site if you want to find out. But that's why I chose that business model, because there's no upfront costs. I didn't have any money, you see. So I had to do something that could just produce cash flow for me and make a profit straight away. And that's what you want to be looking for if you're young. You don't want to be going into high time cost equity businesses that require capital and all this sort of stuff initially, because it's simply not going to succeed. Whereas if you do something like a cash flow business, you can start 10 cash flow businesses and they can all fail and you won't have lost even a fraction as much money as if you tried to start something like a restaurant or a bar, right? So what you want to do is pick some kind of a cash flow business model. I would recommend the digital products route because it's the best business model in the history of mankind. Frankly, it's the most profitable business model you'll ever find, and I have a video about that. If you want to subscribe to my email list, you'll see I have a whole video that talks about this and explains why it's so effective. But, other examples include things like e-commerce, things that are very low cost, although e-commerce does have a higher upfront cost than selling digital products and information products. But you want to be going into some kind of business like that, something that requires very little upfront capital and a low time investment before you can start making money, because that way you can get the ball rolling, you can start creating wealth, producing an income, and you can scale up from there. So that's how you can go from being a completely normal person or, broke college student or something like that to becoming very successful even at a young age, even in your 20s and such like, because you can start off small with a cash flow business. Okay, you can even do that part-time in between your job or your studies, and then you can scale that up by controlling the inputs. And when you understand those two things, it's very easy to succeed consistently and to, achieve very, very rapid growth, right? Because that just sort of creates a snowball effect and compounds on itself there. And then you can scale up and you can start making more and more and more money. And then you can become very, very successful very quickly. So that's the message that I wanted to convey to you in this video. If you like this, please subscribe, check out my website, follow me on social media, and opt into my email list for more exclusive, insightful information. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.